What's going on, everyone? Welcome back. Today we've got another fantasy football mock draft for you back on FantasyPros with the setup all ready to go. This will be a 12-team full point PPR mock where we are selecting from the 6th overall position. And roster-wise, pretty similar to what we always do. 1 quarterback, 2 RBs, 2 wide receivers, a tight end, a flex, and then 5 bench spots. So we can consider some depth pieces as well over there. So let's kick this thing off, start our draft. And while this loads, a quick reminder, if you guys enjoy, hit that like button, subscribe. Also give us a follow on Twitter at alldaypigskin. Check us out online at alldaypigskin.com. All the info in the description. But this thing is underway, so let's see what's taken place up until this point. The first 5 picks, McCaffrey, Barkley, Dalvin Cook, Kamara, Devontae Adams. That makes sense. I would have thought that Derrick Henry would be a top 5 pick. Yes, this is full point PPR, and he doesn't bring as much to the table as some of these other pass catchers, but he has the highest ceiling in terms of pure rushing yards. If there's anybody that's going to get 2,000 yards on the season, it'll be him. High touchdown upside as well. Alvin Kamara, I think you could argue, could fall a little bit. So could Devontae Adams, just because the ability to repeat at the wide receiver position on a year-to-year basis, being the number 1 guy, is so difficult. And then for Kamara, obviously, because of the departure of Drew Brees. So I think you could argue maybe with those 2 picks there, but not too much to really nitpick here at the end of the day. So I'm looking at our selections here, and let's not forget, since we're picking 6th overall, well, we have to wait 13 more picks. So just because a guy might be ranked here 10th, 11th, 12th, 13th overall isn't necessarily a reach, because we know that in the second round, they won't be available to us more than likely. So due to that reason, I'm actually considering a guy that's not even listed here in Austin Ekeler, who I absolutely love and continue to believe that come, August, September, he's going to be regarded, especially in full point PPR scoring, as a almost, surefire top 10 selection. And I love the offense. I love the upgrades on the offensive line as well. Justin Herbert looked great, and I think he's going to continue to get better. And we know Ekeler does his thing as a pass catcher and as a rusher. But now let's get back to this draft, see what happened after our selection of Austin Ekeler. And you see Derrick Henry makes a lot of sense. Zeke, Jonathan Taylor, Nick Chubb, Aaron Jones. So as you would expect, the first round dominated by running backs. Then a run on wide receivers, just because the value pops up. Tyreek Hill, Miles Sanders. I will say, I think that's probably, you could argue a little bit of a reach for Miles Sanders, considering some of the value at wide receiver. You see Diggs, Hopkins, Brown, Ridley, DK Metcalf. And now here, looking at our cheat sheet, we can see what the next best available group of players are. And I'm going to gamble on running back in terms of this next tier of guys in Swift, Mixon, Gibson, Akers, CEH. I like CEH the most out of that group, and I think that one of those guys could be there for me in the 3rd round. We'll see. It's a gamble. So that means I'm looking at Michael Thomas and Travis Kelce. And since, they're both pass catchers, I might as well just take Travis Kelce, in my opinion, at a position of higher scarcity. And he's basically a wide receiver 1. So I'll just pull the trigger here on Kelce. You'll see at some points in time the guy be a 1st round selection. Usually what I do is I wait on the tight end position until later on in the draft. And I still think you very well could, for a guy like a TJ Hawkinson, who I absolutely love this season. But I do think the value for Kelce was very good at the end of the day. Now here, I think we've got another tough decision to make, because there's some great value picks at this point in time. So let's see what happened after our selection of Kelce. We actually see all the 3 top tight ends go in the 2nd round. A little bit surprising. I probably wouldn't do that, but again, that's just me. Then DeAndre Swift, Allen Robinson, Waller, Joe Mixon, Michael Thomas. Good value on Michael Thomas. Like I said, I was considering him in the 2nd round. Patrick Mahomes. I do think that's very early for Mahomes. You're going to be able to get some very good value on quarterbacks later on. Think Kyler Murray, think Josh Allen. That'll probably go a round or 2 later than Mahomes. And I haven't even brought up names like a Justin Herbert or Aaron Rodgers, just for example. Then we see Antonio Gibson and Cam Akers. So our gamble here pays off big time. And the big decision that I have to make right now is, do we go running back or do we look at someone like a Justin Jefferson, which is very tempting. I know Keenan Allen is still there as well, but I've already got Austin Eckler, so I don't want to load up on too many Chargers, specifically because I will try to stack Justin Herbert with Austin Eckler, and that'll just become too much if I add Keenan Allen. We'll see if that actually happens later on. Maybe I get sniped or something like that, but that'll be determined afterwards. So right now I'm between Clyde Edwards-Helaire and, like I mentioned before, Justin Jefferson. And honestly, I'm leaning Clyde Edwards-Helaire because of the position, specifically it being running back. I do think there's a bit of a drop-off afterwards. Josh Jacobs, David Montgomery, I don't love any of those guys. James Robinson, Dobbins having to contend with a Lamar Jackson and with a Gus Edwards. So I'm looking at Clyde Edwards-Helaire on an electric offense. No more Williams, no more Bell. I like the upside there. And Justin Jefferson, it's close. It's very close. I might change my opinion on this later on in the season. And if I had gone running back in the second round, maybe I'd be going with Justin Jefferson here, no question about it. But I'm going to go Clyde Edwards-Helaire. I believe it's a position that is more important, and I do think we can get better value on wide receivers later on. We'll see if that is the case or not. But let's see what happens here and if I was right or wrong. Obviously, Justin Jefferson goes immediately afterwards. Keenan Allen, Julio Jones, great value pick on Julio Jones, by the way. I absolutely love that pick. Then you see Amari Cooper, Chris Godwin, Josh Jacobs, Mike Evans, Dobbins, DJ Moore, Robert Woods, James Robinson. So what we're going to do here is, go wide receiver for sure, pretty much, I would say. And I'm looking at Adam Thielen. I think he's a very good value pick at this point in time, specifically PPR. And yes, people were infatuated with Justin Jefferson, but let's not forget about Thielen. The guy is no slouch either. So I'm going to go with him here. I could potentially go running back again, and I might do that here in this next round. A guy that I was going to point out was Melvin Gordon, who I thought by far and away was the best available running back now with Phillip Lindsay gone. And lucky us, he's still there because after Thielen, we have Cooper Kupp, Josh Allen, Kenny Golladay, Deontay Johnson, CeeDee Lamb, Brendan Ayuk, T. Higgins. So run on wide receivers. Then our next tight end, TJ Hawkinson, like I said, pretty much 2.5 rounds later. Then Tyler Lockett, Chris Carson. So right now, yes, I realize that I only have one wide receiver, but let's not forget, we also took Travis Kelce. And, maybe us being able to get Melvin Gordon at this point in time in the 5th round could be a learning point because we could have him as our second running back. And instead of Adam Thielen being our number 1 wide receiver, we could have a Julio Jones in addition to Adam Thielen, something like that, just to keep in the back of your mind. But I think right now, by far and away, the best pick here is Melvin Gordon. I think he's a very solid flex piece. It gives me depth at the most important position in all of football. So I love that selection. Let's see what we can do now here at the wide receiver position. And I'm looking at the guys that are available. DJ Shark, Courtland Sutton, Robbie Anderson is tempting. I would have Brendan Cooks ranked the highest out of all these guys, but just because I don't know what's going to happen with Deshaun Watson, I can't bring myself to do that because, if it's not Watson for that Houston offense, I would argue that that offense is one of the worst in all of football, especially in all of fantasy football. So right now, this is pretty clear cut for me. I'm looking at probably Courtland Sutton or Robbie Anderson. I will make a quick note. There's some interesting pieces here, like a Myles Gaskin, but I do think the Miami Dolphins will probably add a running back in the draft that will contend with Gaskin. If that isn't the case, then that would be a great pick at this point in time, and you'll see Gaskin's value kind of skyrocket as we get, closer to that August-September time period. But right now I'm going Courtland Sutton. I need another wide receiver. I think it's decent value at this point in time. So I'm not mad at that selection one bit. Now we can turn our attention to, again, just kind of best player available. It's kind of been our strategy up until this point. You see DJ Shark, Robbie Anderson, good pick there. Marlon Mack, Kareem Hunt, way too early on Marlon Mack, in my opinion. I think he should be going 5, 6 rounds later. But that's just me coming off, again, a major injury. Jonathan Taylor is in place. Naheem Hines has a role. So keep all those things in mind. Kareem Hunt, Irv Smith, another tight end pick that I really like. No more Rudolph there. Ronald Jones, Will Fuller, Deshaun Watson, Brendan Cooks, Leonard Fournette. So right now, in the 7th round, remember when I said going quarterback in the 3rd round is way too early because you're going to get some great value picks in the 6th, 7th, 8th round? Well, I think I've hit that point here, and I can look at the quarterback position. And like I mentioned before, I want to get that stack of Eckler and Justin Herbert. That's what I'm going to do at this point in time because I anticipated a run on quarterbacks just like you see here. So I'm glad that we pulled the trigger on Justin Herbert. And now we can kind of look at some other positions, wide receiver, get some depth there, maybe some gems at the running back position. But yeah, run on quarterbacks and some wide receivers, Claypool, Debo, Judy, Gallup, Landry, LaVisca. I would have said Landry could have been a target for us. Myles Gaskin, if he was there with this next pick for us, Gaskin would have probably been the selection just because of the high upside, regardless of how many running backs we actually have. Something I do want to point out. But now looking back at wide receiver, I don't really love any of these selections at this point in time. Let's see if there's some names here that we're forgetting for these running backs that might be potential good value. And I'll tell you one right now that jumps off the screen for me. That is Mike Davis of the Atlanta Falcons. Todd Gurley obviously gone. And I think the Falcons have so many other needs that they're not going to go running back early in the draft. And at least for one season, Mike Davis can be a nice piece. So I don't mind him right now, especially when you consider the wide receivers that are available. I think there's a higher upside for Mike Davis. So I'll go ahead and add him here as a nice flex piece. Yes, I realize there's a very high chance he would have been available, 2 rounds from now, blah, blah, blah. But that's just because, these rankings, in my opinion, don't accurately reflect some of the upside here with that pick. So now getting back to quickly seeing our draft board to see if there were any names that we kind of forgot about. Jalen Hurts, Sterling Shepard, ETN, Kenyon Drake, Carson Wentz, Pittman. I do like Pittman. I was hoping he could fall to us. Devontae Parker, James Conner, Mike Gesicki, James White. So yeah, now we have to pivot. I would say probably definitely at the wide receiver position. I'm looking at Marquise Brown, Corey Davis, Jamison Crowder. Marquise Brown is a high upside pick, but he's also very boom or bust. Since this is also PPR, I'm going to be passing on Marquise Brown, especially because I do think the Ravens could add a wide receiver early on in the draft. So now that means I'm looking between Corey Davis, Jamison Crowder, Mike Williams, these group of names. And a guy that I don't mind taking a chance on at this point in time is actually Christian Kirk. I'm really intrigued to see what happens in Arizona with AJ Green there. I think that could really open things up for Christian Kirk to kind of have, that breakout role that everyone's been seemingly waiting on for so long. So that's what I'm going to do here. I'm going to take Christian Kirk. And, at this point in time, even though you might see reach or something like that, it's late on in the draft. We're adding bench pieces, depth pieces. So don't let, any of that be something that scares you away from some of these pieces, is what I will say to that effect. And now we can continue to load up on some of these, wide receivers that are still on the board, because after a selection of Kirk, you see McKissick, Cohen, so a big time run on running backs. But, I'm not that big of a fan of selecting backup running backs, because all these guys, they're second or even third fiddle in the backfields. So to me, that's not all that attractive. You see some tight ends go off the board as well, but we've got Kelsey, so nothing to worry about. So let's now look at wide receivers again, and nothing has really changed. I will say that a guy that I'll probably take a chance on right now is a Darnell Mooney, who I really like as an up-and-coming wide receiver. Yes, the situation is tough because he plays for the Chicago Bears and, them and passing the football other than Allen Robinson, not really a strong suit, but I think he's firmly the number 2 wide receiver on that team. So I'm all right taking him at this point in time. Let's go ahead and take him off the board. And then we've got 2 more picks to make afterwards and kind of wrap this thing up here. And I could go with a value pick right now, get a backup running, I should say quarterback here. And I think that's what I'm going to do with my last pick. So right now, let's go to the wide receivers and get a guy with some high upside. And I've been talking about Marquise Brown for a while now. And at this point, it's just a good value pick. It's so late in the draft that it's probably 3-4 rounds later than when we initially brought him up. So I'm all right. This is what I mean when it comes to value. At certain points in time, the value is just good, so you take a chance on it. That's what I'll do with Marquise Brown, and then we will wrap this thing up by selecting a quarterback, and we can see what our grade is in terms of how we performed here. So I'm going to go with Matthew Stafford. I like the offense that he has over there with the Rams, the defense as well. It's going to give some opportunities to the offense. So let's go ahead and add him, get some depth, and see what our grade is overall here. Wow. Okay, so obviously very low grade, but allow me to kind of break this down and explain why the grade should definitely be higher. So first and foremost, at the quarterback position, Justin Herbert, pairing him up with Austin Eckler, I love that stack. I think that's going to be one of the best stacks in all of fantasy football. When you can get that, that's so valuable, especially with Eckler, who is a PPR stud. I think we got very good value on Clyde Edwards-Helaire. One thing I would have probably done differently is, go with a true bona fide wide receiver 1 earlier on, and then, having potentially Melvin Gordon as my second running back. Because having Courtland Sutton as my number 2 wide receiver, I don't mind it, but looking at the depth afterwards, that's where it gets scary. Yes, we have Travis Kelce, and, Melvin Gordon is our flex, which I love, but the bench is iffy. And that's ultimately why we got the grade that we got, because we looked at players with high upside that we thought were ranked a lot lower than they should be, specifically Mike Davis, Kirk, Mooney, and then, getting some value picks with Marquise Brown and Matthew Stafford as a backup to Justin Herbert in case something happens. But look, overall, I'd probably say this is a B-, C+ type of roster, nowhere close to the D+ grade. But hey, let me know what you guys think. Did you agree, disagree? What did you think of the picks? Along with any other questions you guys might have, let me hear it in the comment section. And if you guys enjoyed, hit that like button, subscribe. And again, check us out online, alldaypigskin.com. Give us a follow on Twitter at alldaypigskin. All those details in the description. But in the meantime, we'll see you guys in future videos.